The teacher Samuel says that in 50 there was a trial where humanity was condemned, but those 3 trials remained, to which I understand that the teacher Nostradamus partly referred, and in a veiled way wanted to make that known, leading some to think that Nostradamus was wrong. But teacher Samael says, I consider that our master was not wrong. There has been an alteration of a few years lost in the quantitative table of our Christian era. We won't go into that. In 1997, there was the first trial, in 1999, the second, and in 2003, on August 18, 2003, there will be the third. It doesn't mean that terrible events are not happening, nor am I saying that in 2003 everything will fall apart. They are simply processes that will mark and leave indelible marks on humanity, resulting in something beyond wars, beyond drugs, beyond AIDS, beyond hunger, beyond bacteriological bombs, etc., etc., etc. There will be an aspect that is too concerning, beyond genetically modified foods, which is water. Water, that's where we arrive. However, scientists have learned to manipulate people's psyche in such a methodical way that they are already talking about salting seawater. They are talking about tanker trucks and some kind of pumping. They may do all that, but they cannot prevent part of humanity's death due to the lack of water and the use of water unsuitable for consumption. The warming of the planet is an inevitable thing, as you know, and science may have said 30% of the truth, but there is 70% that they ignore. We have talked in previous gatherings about the ice in Antarctica. Teacher Samael spoke many years ago about the blue men of Antarctica, the blue men. It was a humanity that lived in the hollow earth of Antarctica. No one is unaware that science found the phenomenon of the hole in Antarctica when the ozone layer hole began to be so pronounced there. The blue men were taken by extraterrestrials, they are no longer there, they are from Venus and are there. Some are coming in ships to visit the Earth because part of their mission was to stabilize harmony on our planet, and they had to be in Antarctica because it is the southern land, where Christ is born every December 25th. You know that blessed Mother Nature is fertilized on March 21st in the north, the day of the equinoxes, and begins its journey through the central mountain ranges to the south, where on December 25th, it gives birth to the golden child. This happens every year. With the withdrawal of the blue men from Antarctica, the nature of the same phenomenon continues, but look, this is practically very, very hidden. That birth that continues to take place there is a force. That force is gradually joining the logos. Previously, it joined, was born there, and was distributed through the inner part of the hollow in Antarctica to all the volcanoes on our planet. I don't know if I am making myself understood. Those volcanoes all over the world received a force, which is harmony, from the inner part of the earth through Antarctica, meaning there was control. Now, that has ended, that energy has ended. On December 25th, it is born, and bye-bye, Mom, to Logos, to join Logos because it is Christic. So, what is entering the hollow in Antarctica? Oxygen, but any amount. Look, if I light a torch here that sends fire over there, what does the part of the torch over here do? It shoots and absorbs oxygen over there, and if we put a reduction there and a long tube, it pulls in more oxygen, right? Antarctica is supplying oxygen, but any amount because the volcanoes worldwide are active, but in alarming quantities, and there are terrible gaps inside the earth that are being filled with oxygen. Look at the danger, there may be oxygen inside the earth in those quantities because I am releasing this, and for those who understand a little, they say no, that cannot be, but if someone is pulling it here and giving it an outlet, there has to be, and if not, there would be no incandescent part, but if it goes too much into the hollow, there is no more oxygen, which is what I want to tell you because someone trying to find logic may not find it, but imagine that well here we have the tremendous dormant lion, which is a volcano here in Urina, it's asleep and it will wake up, what happens? This dormant lion is there roaring, and then it receives part, but since it is not giving an outlet, the rest stays there, but there is another one calling it, the closest volcano, and eruptions are happening in a chain. That is what will cause earthquakes and issues everywhere, volcanoes eroding everywhere, volcanoes that will last from now on until the planet disappears in eruption because there is combustion from there that fuels the liquid fire inside the earth. Look, the teachers explain this with incredible skill. The crack in the bottom of the Pacific is growing, said teacher XX, who had 5 times more depth than in 1960, 5 times deeper. That is, if the teacher said that the seawater is making contact with the fire, what will we say now? These 5 times more give one of the reasons why the warming has caused the seawater at the bottom of the sea to stop being cold, because it came into contact with the liquid fire of the planet. Previously, we saw that a tremor came from 200 kilometers deep, for example. Now they will start to be at 100, 50, and even 30 kilometers deep, indicating that the game will be more superficial every day, resulting in an earthquake at 30 kilometers deep destroying a city in 30 seconds, another reason for the planet to be hotter, another. If we are told that the ozone layer, the hole in Antarctica, has disappeared, it is not true that the rest of the planet is thinner. That is not true. In the rest of the planet, it is thinner, with some parts that are practically hollows. Another reason, the billions of trillions of tons of pressure that have entered the atmosphere produced by factories, cars, airplanes, that is, everything that enters as force, as atmospheric pressure. I don't know what they call it. The planet is bursting. If it were not for the orbit being very powerful and not letting anything pass there by law, our pollution would already be reaching the moon and more due to that pressure, that is making the earth call from the inside. There has been a decompensation of the tides. We have been saying this for several gatherings about the harmony between the moon and the earth, and practically, the moon is no longer acting. With that concatenation with the earth, we already see that in the nights there is not that natural freshness that used to exist because it was night and because it is under the influence of the moon. Any peasant knows that. So, what is happening? Besides that, another element of less cause, is added, which is deforestation. Although one sees it as very serious, and that is true, very serious, it is not even a third of what I am telling you. That is too serious. The planet is going to overheat in a horrifying way, if it can be called that, with this incredible image. We can already see, except for the countries where the seasons are very marked due to the balance, and that, everyone knows that the Earth has an imbalance at this moment of 27 degrees, look. It is a movement of the poles, an inclination of about 27. And Master Ranzu says, the day, the minute, and second that it reaches 33, bam, we go from, it says like this, to the rings of actions. It is hoped that, God willing, before we do, we will have some work more or less advanced. Don't let these scientists start a nuclear war, because it would be the most brutal catastrophe of life. That is just a step away, and believe me, they say it is stuck, it has not followed the progress, the imbalance, because the Venerable White Lodge has it there in that place. But it is so close that it would be like me grabbing this little cup and throwing it there, so it's done. That is to say, the situation is not that easy. The rivers are going to start drying up, it is already drying up everywhere, the water flows are going to be less every day. They are talking, for example, that there are entire countries that will be left with just one river, with 2 rivers at most. It will end, it dries up. Scientists and governments will fight tirelessly so that this does not happen, but it will happen. There will be, cities, sometimes monstrous cities that consume millions of gallons per second, that will have to manage with a third of what they have now. The most interesting thing about this image, meaning what I'm saying with this, is that it's good that the Gnostic people are not jumping and panicking. But yes, let's look for places that, by natural logic, we see that they do not have that have less possibility of that, although there is one thing, there will be, earthquakes that will dry up rivers because those rivers will become, it all sums up in the waters, all of that will happen. But it is good to start thinking with a little serenity about this problem of the planet's drought and overheating of the planet, the consequences it brings. Scientists are talking about a warming of a degree and something like that, but the teachers, sincerely speak of very alarming things that do not agree with what science is saying. But it will be on a much larger scale. The planet will heat up in such a way that before the date they are giving, we will have 2 degrees of Celsius warming. They gave a date when practically that phenomenon will happen. That is, the problem is more serious than one thinks, brother, it is. So, it's not to scare you, it's not to intimidate anyone, it's not because one says, well, I'm going to start the work because death is coming. No, that has to be done, it's a matter of conscience. But it is fair that we, as Gnostic students, have in mind a mathematical point that they have given us so that we see how far we are going, how far there are possibilities of reaching, and how far, where there are no possibilities of reaching. Yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, they were talking about intense heat waves in some areas of the United States, and a doctor came out and said they were advising on the BBC in London that people living there, who had some heart disorder, should leave because many people were already dying from the heat waves, especially those with heart problems. And we are not saying this because that news came out yesterday, but one of the terrible effects is that sincerely our body will not withstand such abrupt changes. So, I don't know, dear brothers, well, we leave it there in your knowledge, there is nothing to do, it's not that one says, I'm leaving from here, I'm going there, but it is fair that this people know to what extent the beloved teachers are making an effort to make us aware, as much as possible, of everything we will have to live, of everything that will have to be presented as symptoms of the agony of the race. No more, dear brothers, but to tell you that God bless you, dear brothers, on behalf of the lumen monastery, on behalf of the venerable abbot Master Lakhsmi, on behalf of Master Samael, our holy and blessed guru of this people, on behalf of my Lord, the Christ of the Blessed White Lodge. May God bless you all, may God repay you, may God bless you, may God guide you, and count, as our beloved patriarch Samael said, even worse if you are with me, I will be with you, because that is the commitment we have made throughout the history of humanity. Whoever accompanies us in the name of Christ, we will accompany him in the name of the Father.